What's good, fam? Welcome to the Veterans of the Game podcast, episode 2 of this very highly esteemed podcast. I am your host, Chief Warrant Officer Maine Terry, and this is a podcast about the lifestyles, the leisure activities, and sometimes even the laugh out loud moments as experienced by our military veterans. Today, my guest is going to be Army Major Joe McKinney. Welcome to the show. How you doing, sir?
How you doing? Thanks for having me, Chief.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Hey, man, I feel like this has been a long time coming because, truth be told, Major Joe McKinney at one point was my neighbor, my favorite neighbor of all neighbors that I've ever had in my 21 years of military service. And I feel like I was forced to abandon him by, we'll blame HRC, Army HRC. They took me away from you, sir.
Ripped you from my arms.
Yeah, man. It kind of almost was that. The longest hug goodbye I've ever had in my life, man.
Mowing the grass just isn't the same anymore.
We're not going to talk about the shenanigans, the grass mowing shenanigans, and taking shots in 97 degree heat after 2 hours of cutting a lawn.
We're not facing it with a double shot of whiskey.
With the double shot of whiskey and a Smirnoff Ice Chaser. But yeah, man, it is a pleasure to have you. And I just noticed that you took a sip. What are you drinking, sir?
So tonight we're just doing Jameson on the rocks.
Jameson on the rocks.
It's an easy drink a day. Got to work tomorrow, so.
Yeah. So you do a triple of Jameson before you go to bed. I get it. For those of you, say that again.
Relaxes the back and helps you sleep.
Okay, I hear you, man. So for those of you who don't know, like I said, this is a podcast just talking about the lifestyles and the leisure activities, things that our service members like to do when we're not in uniform. So I wanted to bring Major McKinney on so that we could just kind of discuss a little bit about his career, his background, and then see what he's passionate about. So I'll kick it over to you, sir. Describe your military journey. What was your career like for you?
So my career started in 2006. I was a college op. So I graduated with my bachelor's degree, went straight off to boot camp, went out to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, then pivoted after that to OCS out in Fort Benning, Georgia. In 2006, we were in the middle of the surge. So we were being front loaded really quickly and told, keep your head down, keep breathing, and you'll graduate. So we made it through there, ended up in Fort Huachuca, pulled the coveted MI slot, even though I really wanted infantry at the time, and then shipped off to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, where I took on my first platoon as a second lieutenant. I was probably one of the wisest second lieutenants you'll ever meet. So it was a perfect situation. And then, my first rotation to Iraq was 90 days after arriving there. So did that first deployment back in the 15-month deployment days. You know how that goes.
I had two of those.
A single guy there. But single guy going out the door, so a torch party. Single guy coming home, so trail party. So that was fun times.
So did your 15-month deployment turn into like 17 months?
Oh, very quickly. It was one of those, like, you're single, nobody loves you, you're out the doors first.
Hey, we need you to pack up everything on our way back. See you when you get here.
You got to count everything and check serial numbers, and then you can come home.
So you were the super UMO?
Oh, yeah. I was fighting, packing and repacking Conexes and laying out Conexes and, catching the people huffing canned air behind the Conexes and then repacking the Conexes.
Well, at least when you returned, you got to return to Hawaii. I guess it's not all bad.
That's true. So, I came back from there and stayed in the same unit, rotated to a different position, got into staff, all the wonderful training you get as an officer on the battalion staff. And then took a company command and rotated back out to Iraq for a second time very shortly thereafter. After that, I rotated back out to Fort Huachuca, went back to fun old Arizona, and did my captain's career course. And after that, I was off to Fort Bragg, home of the airborne, and just started jumping out of planes and, got shortened by about an inch in height and landed too many times. And did quite a bit of time out there. Loved the East Coast. In between there, I guess I kind of skipped over. That's when I got married in between there. So got married in between deployments. And so then I plussed up by one of my household goods. And then after Arizona, plussed up by my first dependent. I had my daughter out there in Arizona. So picking jobs got a little more interesting after that, trying to figure out how to get closer and closer to home out in the East Coast. And that's what took us to Bragg. And from Bragg, to Fort Belvoir. So, and then in Fort Belvoir, plus up my second dependent, I had my son. So yeah, so that's how I ended up out here on the East Coast, and this is where I sit now, Fort Belvoir area. I'm about to rotate to a different position, but been loving life.
So you said that you spent your whole career, you started your career in Arizona, went out to Hawaii, and then you've been trying to get back to the East Coast. So where do you call home? Where was home before you joined?
So home was a little, I come from two Marine Corps parents, so home was all over, but home ended up being Virginia. So Marine dad retired out of Quantico, so finished his career there. We graduated high school here in Virginia, and then so Stafford, Virginia was home for me. Stafford, Virginia is where I met my wife. We grew up together when I was about 9, 10 years old. And then went to college out of Newport News, and then joined the Army and have come full circle back. So back in Stafford, back in Virginia, back on the wonderful I-95 corridor to the DC metro area.
Is I-95 any better now than it was, say 10 months ago?
No. It's gotten far worse. We had a little bit of a reprieve during COVID, not too many people on the streets, but it has escalated right back up. So.
Oh man, yeah, I miss those COVID days of going into work at a reasonable hour, nobody on the roads with you. Oh, I miss it.
Yep. Nobody on there, no traffic, no accidents to stop you for 3 hours from getting home and sitting there in the sun. So, yep, we're back full-fledged into that.
Well, so on your different assignments, you said you were in Hawaii, deployed a couple times, and ended up in Bragg before you made your way back to the Fort Belvoir area. What did you do? What's your MOS? What were your duty other than being a platoon leader when you first started?
So when I first started, so I was 35 Delta, so I was a platoon leader for an ISR platoon. So we did a lot of the division and below owned assets, controlled a lot of those different assets. Did a lot of the types of stuff we supported was a little bit more ISR integration for targeting, so a little bit more on the boots on the ground type work. Did a lot of work in that deployment because I transitioned off my platoon leader time and kind of started my staff time while I was still deployed. Did a lot of ops and doing some stuff you're probably very familiar with, reviewing packets for Buka. So ended up on that board for a while, being a very seasoned first lieutenant. So obviously they really wanted my opinion on those things. And so I sat on that board for a little bit as well on a special duty assignment for a bit. And then when I transitioned up to the battalion staff, I was in the 2 shop for a short period of time. Then I transitioned into the 3 shop. So I ran all the plans for all of our training exercises of our field ops. And we went to NTC, ran a lot of the live fire ranges. We were a striker brigade. So our live fire ranges included quite a bit of vehicles and movement, and doing our ranges took quite a big of a heavy lift, putting all those vehicles out there and just doing different objective mission sets and things like that. So being in Hawaii, we had to do our big training on the Big Island on the top of the mountain. So it could be snowing up on the top of the mountain, then you drive down the mountain, you could go to the beach and surf. So it was a little bit of an interesting climate. But yeah, so that's what I did on the staff there for quite some time. Then when we deployed the second time, I was actually the HECXO for our battalion, and then transitioned into command. And we were a very large landowner that second deployment. A lot of what my company did was do a lot of route clearance type support. So we would support the engineers that were clearing routes. We secured all the logistics vehicles that were going out, pushing stuff, all the FOBs that were out everywhere, all our movement within our division footprint. So we secured all those logistics guys, all the guys in the 18-wheelers and the fuel trucks and the food trucks that were basically just bullet catchers. And then we worked really closely with the State Department at the time, the PRTs, and they were the ones that got to go out and look at how good old Uncle Sam was spending the money out there and building up all the infrastructure for the Iraqis. And they would come on there, and we'd take them out about a year post finalization of projects so they could get eyes on and see how well it was being taken care of, if the Iraqis were still utilizing them. So those were always fun. So you got to see how things looked a year after we finished big projects, like training areas, different things like that. So spent a lot of time with the State Department doing that. We did some counter sniper operations in the city. That was fun. And then, yeah, that's what we did kind of as our big landowner. Being the HEC commander, we had about 2 or 3 platoons spliced to us from different organizations within our battalion to help us out. So had a rather large and robust company, and also dealt with, the admin fun of dealing with the staff officers. So, making sure that they were doing all their stuff they need to do, get all their mandatory training, all that stuff. So chasing down all the majors and stuff in the battalion staff as a lowly captain with no career course under his belt. So that's and then that finalized my time in Hawaii. Even when I went to career course and left, I became a primary staff officer. So entered Bragg into USASOC as a battalion S2. So sat there for a couple years doing that, and did a little bit more specialized stuff when I was forward deployed. I was a Ford J2 out in supporting some missions at a cutter, supporting some different organizations there behind some compounds, and then
some organizations behind compounds. I see you.
a lot of different groups doing a lot of different fun things. So met some cool people there, did that, and yeah, came back and just supported a lot of red team training for different organizations at Bragg, and did a lot of that kind of stuff. Worked really closely with the HUMIT team down there, so got to see a little bit of your world and manage some of those folks on the intel side. And yeah, then I completely did a 180, and when I transitioned up to Belvoir, got into the GeoInt game and really started managing GeoInt collections and getting into the sat ops and doing satellite operations type. Learned everything from collection management to orbital analysis, and got really hard and heavy into that. And that really triggered my career when I switched over in 2017 into the reserves. And that blossomed into a civilian career running a company, is doing that now. So that's what I do now. Is I still do my my Army stuff, but then on the contracting side, I do the government contracting, all in the GeoInt satellite operations type community. That really set me up for success. It was something I had never touched before. I knew that space was above us, but that's about the extent of my knowledge until I came up here. And the Army, the good thing about the Army, when they put you in those situations, they kind of say, figure it out. They give you all the training opportunities. Unlike the civilian sector, where you have to go to years and years of training to get hands on any of that, the Army just puts you in a room and says, here, figure it out. So in the course of 2 to 3 years, got more experience than the average person would ever expect to get. Yeah, turn that into a separate career as I transitioned off of normal active duty timeframes.
So that's pretty good, man. You kind of ran the gamut on, everything you could possibly do as an intel officer. When you went to Triple C, did you go specifically for GeoInt, or were you still kind of an all source guy?
No, so Triple C, especially for the MI, it's all source. There's what's called the SI, the identifiers that you can get after. So you can go to geospatial specific training, you can go to the HUMIT, the CI training, you can do those different routes. I actually have the SI-1 Delta for GeoInt, but I actually tested out of it when I was in Belvoir. They basically gave me they let me, because of my experience, because of what I did, I was able to get the identifier without going to the course, because I was actually doing the job, and I was in a space enabling billet for almost 4 years. And so I actually got the SI-1 Delta, and then I did the space course. I was space operations qualified as well, just from that experience. But yeah, career course was really just a very skim the top of the level, all source, kind of walk you through the different, a little bit more at the 03 level, a little different from the lieutenant course, where they focus more on IPB and that kind of stuff, doing the coups. And then in the 03 level course, they focus more on writing the Annex B for an operations order and all that entails, and a little bit more high level IPB and different things like that. So, none of it fully prepares you to be a battalion S2, I can say. I don't think that there's not a whole lot they do in the way of leadership and prepping you or prepping you for a company command, which a lot of captains take after there. It's very generic, all source, fold a gap type stuff, force on force, things that now we're interested in years later. But at the time we were straight in the coin fight still. So a little bit of mixture there, but yeah, very, very all source heavy, not too in the weeds in terms of any specific int or capability.
Yeah, it does sound like kind of the Army. The Army follows a cycle, but the training always lags about 7 years behind where the Army wants to be. Because you're right, now that everybody in the Army kind of knows coin, we're headed right back to force on force, let's go, decisive action type Army. And everybody that's in the Army in leadership positions were trained on coin. So we're kind of trying to learn how to be an active Army again. It's fun. It's very funny.
Yeah, when I was at Bragg, they sent me quite a bit down in Tampa, and I did a lot of course on like irregular warfare, things like that. So it was interesting, all the niche things they tried to teach you. But yeah, it definitely is always lagging by such a long period of time that by the time you've done the training, you've gotten what you feel qualified, you feel confident, and you think you're ready, and then you get to your assignment, and you're just like, this is not at all what I was doing. And you kind of learn on the fly, which is that whole mentality they have on officers, where they keep to be a jack of all trades, master of none. So they expect you to just plug and play you, and in your leadership will carry you through, and your officer training will carry you through in some form or fashion, which is one of my biggest gripes of leadership within the military. But we can cover that later in the segment.
and it's probably compounded when you're an all source guy, because not only do you just have to have general knowledge of the military as a whole, but then you also have to have a general knowledge on what all the other disciplines can provide and bring to a fight. And so you kind of have to know enough to be smart on everything, but you're never really an expert on anything when you're an all source guy. Yeah.
They expect you to be able to run in there and run a shop. And it's interesting how they approach that when you look at, the talent management piece of it. Once you get really, really good at something, it's time to move on to the next thing, and you're back to square one in many cases. So there's no correlation to, somebody's really, has achieved the highest level of doing something, or is in that, what I would consider that expert role of doing something, whether it be in the GUINT, SIGINT, whatever trades. And unless your MOS is squared up to that, like they do with the cyber and in many cases the signatures, unless you're in that career field, you just, that knowledge and expertise you gain once you move on to another assignment 3-4 years and you're removed from it, your knowledge is almost expired at that point. And if you have to rotate back in, you have to catch up, and there's no sense of continuity in that development of knowledge.
Yeah. So all in all, how many years have you had in service?
September will be 16 years for me. So I'm trailing you by about 5.
Yeah. Catch up, man. Cause it's gonna look good for me in about 18 months, because I'm gonna be done with it.
Taking that 3-year bonus.
I'm not gonna get that bonus. I'm not gonna get that bonus, man. So out of your 16 years in service, what do you think your biggest takeaway from the Army has been?
I think that one of the biggest takeaways, one of the things the military really does for you, especially, coming out straight out of college, when you're in that kind of time of your life where you're like, what do I want to do? What is the thing that's going to interest me forever? And at the time, everybody's telling you, get a job, get a career, get something. And in your mind, you're thinking that thing that I'm going to do is going to be the thing I do forever. That's just, once I get in there, I have to pick one thing, and that's it. And I think what the military showed me very quickly is that, it's not hard to pivot a career. It's not hard to pivot a skill set. You're not stuck in one thing. You could do something for a while. And what's great about the military, it's both a positive and negative sometimes, because I think as you get farther in your career and you get better at something, you kind of discovered that's the thing you want to do. But the military really showed me that it's never too late to change what you're doing. You could be 3-4 years in a career, be doing something, and just go, I absolutely hate this. I want to do something different. And you could just take a hard left turn, and that's one thing I picked up from the military that was really unique, and it kind of changed my mentality on, what you do for your career. Like, you really can be 10 years deep in a career and just like, I'm done with this. I'm going to do something completely different. And it instills in you the ability to succeed. That instills in you the ability to understand how to look at that problem, how to look at that challenge that you're now going to give yourself, and really break it down and create a plan. And that's really what the military did for me. I never felt so sucked down into a career field or a thing even within a career field. As we both know, even in the intelligence community, you can go a billion different ways with your career, depending on what you want to do. I never felt that this is it. When I was doing a job, it wasn't like, this is the one thing I'm going to be stuck doing. And if I hate it, I'm just going to hate it forever. I knew that I could change out in 2-3 years with my PCS. I knew that if I really, really wanted to, I could go to a different school and I could pivot. I watched guys that came up through the ranks with me as infantrymen, as intel guys, who just decided, I'm dropping my commission. I'm going to go be a warrant officer, and I'm going to learn how to fly UH-60s. And out the door they went, and they're pilots, and they're happy. And it really kind of opened my eyes to that whole concept of you can do anything you put your mind to. The military really beats that into you, where it's you can do whatever you want to, but here's the plan to how to get there, and here's how the discipline to actually lock yourself down and go through the course of study or go through the training and do what it is you need to do to get to that point. And I think that's the big takeaway I think the military does. And it's almost could be stifled down to just saying it gives you confidence, and it gives you the ability to be confident in what you do and how you change that mindset of what you want to accomplish. You can set goals and actually achieve them because you're confident in yourself and your abilities, because there's only, you're put into so many situations in the military where you're just dropped in and going, figure it out. You've been through the ringer of just solving problems with no known endpoints, no midway points, just being told, hey, figure it out, man. When I showed up to Bragg the first time, they put me in a brand new battalion that just stood up, and they said, you're the first S2 of this battalion. Stand up the S2 shop, build the SOPs, figure it out. That was my first S2 job, and we figured it out. And it's just one of those things you learn how to get the resources around you. You learn how to find solution space to really get to where you need to go. And I think that's one of the things that I will always take away from my military time is it really made me successful from that perspective, to even the point of when I decided I was going to get out and go into the reserves and do something different. I kind of told myself I want to run a small business. I want to be my own boss. I want to do these things. And so instinctively my Army side kicked in, and I started backwards planning. Okay, here's what I want to get to. What do I need to do? Went knocked out my MBA, did it in 12 and a half months, because that's just what we do in the Army. We just dive in head first. It hadn't been in school for years, and I was like, I'm just going to do this because I know I need to get it done. Got in, got it done, got my PMP, did all the things you needed to do, and then kind of learned the process, and then just got cocky enough where I was like, I can do this, and then dove in head first, knowing that I'm not afraid to fail, and and I know that I'll figure it out along the way. And I think that really came from my Army experience, and not an innate ability to just solve things. It was the Army. Just you learn throughout the course of your career how to solve problems and really how to bring about all the capability around you to solve a problem. So I really think that's an inherent military quality that most people can pick up. I mean, obviously there's plenty of people that will go 20, 25 years in the military and couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag or figure out how to solve a problem. But I think that's how the Army really instills that confidence in you along the way. You might not be able to figure out how to get out of the paper bag, but you're confident you're going to be able to eventually get out of the paper bag. And the rest of us will be around drinking and watching and laughing, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and the funny thing about kind of a difference between being in the military and being on the civilian side of things is that most civilians would say, if you just threw me to the wolves and your only guidance to me was, here you go, you're in this position, figure it out. I think most people would be, what is it, analysis paralysis? You spend so much time trying to figure out what you need to do that you don't really do anything. And the Army really does have a good way of just kind of breaking you of that and forcing you to kind of analyze things from the end point of where you want to be, and then working yourself backwards to where you're starting. And you kind of just build that road path ahead of you. And, it does teach you kind of how to MDMP your life, man. That's kind of the way we go through life now.
Yeah, I definitely have seen on the contracting side and the civilian side, really, where, if you tell somebody, if you want to put them in a job that maybe they haven't done before, they're not qualified, their immediate reaction is, well, if you want me to do that, you need to train me, or you need to send me this thing, or you need to pay for this course or pay for this certification. Whereas, when you deal with veterans and you deal with military type people, sometimes it's almost like a curse too, where you forget when you're telling them, hey, I need you to do this thing. Instinctively, they just go, yep, got it, Roger. And the assumption there is they know how to do it. They might not even know how to do that, but in their head, they're like, I'll figure it out. I'm sure I could Google my way to success. They have that mentality about them where it's just like, okay, yeah, I'll figure it out. If I can get my hands on it for more than 5 minutes, I'm just dumb enough to figure it out, watch a few videos. I mean, that's just an inherent military trait. And I mean, that's not to say the civilians don't have that, but I think that it's just beat into you in the military. They're just like, go into this situation. We're going to give you the tools to succeed and tell you generally how it's been handled before, but make a decision. I mean, that was the big thing. I remember they coached us in OCS. They used to tell us all the time, and they were like, you're here to become an officer. You're here to be a leader. You're going to fail. It's going to happen, but we want you to make decisions. Get to that point where you're making decisions. If you're not making the decision, you're going to be wrong either way. But if you make the decision and you're wrong, you're at least going to learn from it. But get in there and make a decision. That is the point of why you're here. You're the person that has to make the decisions. You're going to have sometimes 25% of the information you need to make the decision. Sometimes you're going to have 99%. It's a lot easier to make the decision. But at some point, you have to make that decision, and you just need to make it. And you need to do it with the best and possible knowledge that you have and the outcome that you can come up with. And so I think that really kind of set the tone for my mentality and just how, and I see that a lot with a lot of my, obviously, veteran brethren. It just, you're almost confident when you're dealing with another veteran, another, military person, where you're just like, oh, they have it. They got it. And you just almost take that for granted so often because it's an expectation. And so it's bred into you where you're just like, I'm going to give my platoon sergeant this information and he's going to figure it out. He's going to turn around and he's going to make that mission his own. And he's going to go figure it out. And those privates that might be lost, or those young lieutenants who might be lost, they're going to figure it out because there's going to be some NCO or there's going to be some salty captain who's going to square them away. Yeah. And that you lose that when you leave the military and in the civilian sector, because you can't just look at a supervisor sometimes and expect them to just turn and figure it out. They could look at you sometimes like, you didn't train me for this. You haven't prepared me for this. What am I supposed to do? And it's a different mindset and a different mentality. But I think that's what makes a lot of people successful, because they put you through that ringer and prep you for that environment.
And another good thing about the Army is that, there's always somebody somewhere that does have the answer, or so close to the answer that you can lean on. You know,
We call them warrant officers.
but even like if we're talking like, you know, there's always a sister company, a sister battalion, a sister brigade, somebody who's done it before, somebody in some position who's seen it before, and they can kind of walk you through. And even if you have never encountered this person in life before, you know, you do have that confidence that, you know, hey, I can walk up to this guy and say, hey, Sergeant, hey, Chief, hey, Major, hey, sir, I know you've seen something like this before. Just point me in the right direction.
Yeah.
And you can confidently approach people, and they will confidently point you in the right direction. You don't really have to pull teeth when you're dealing with another service member. And that's
Or
something that
you'll always get a data dump. There's always some senior with a file cache somewhere that goes, oh, I've been an XO before. Here you go, boom.
yeah.
Now you have all the templates you need to get things done. Or, you know, that's what I always tell people, because, you know, you get these young officers that'll be like, oh, I have to write this operations order. Like, well, go ask all the seniors, and they'll give you 50 different ones to look at, and then you just copy paste and make it work. I mean, there's like, just like you said, there's always the Oracle somewhere who has a set of these documents. You know, it's been done.
The Oracle. I like that. I've never used that term, but I like that. There's always an Oracle somewhere.
It probably sits in the S6.
Yeah. And I'm a huge proponent of do not reinvent the wheel. Somebody has already done this. Please just use their use them as your backbone, and the rest of it is going to fall into place for you. So that's a very, very interesting concept. And on the flip side, because I know you said earlier that there's some things about the military that you don't always agree with. So let's get into that, man. Like what are the things that you've taken away from the military that you may have otherwise wished that you hadn't?
You know, I've always been told, especially, you know, having commanded all the way up to battalion command level, I had the rare opportunity to command at an 05 command over the past year. And so I got a very interesting perspective. You know, I've commanded at the company level, I've been in the battalion level, I've been at the brigade and division levels with staffing, and now I've commanded at the 05 level. And I can tell you, you know, something, you know, I came in the Army in 06, and I know that it's always an old timers thing to say, like, oh, the Army was different when I came in. But, you know, I think that leadership was a little bit different, especially in the infantry side of the house, because I came up in combat arms. And so when I was a company commander, I was a rifle commander. I had the opportunity to do a lot of infantry jobs as a captain, platoon leader to a commander, where I actually was commanding rifle companies, not a traditional role that an MI guy would get, but I got those opportunities. And so my leadership development really came in the form of combat arms environment, and really under the tutelage of very hard-nosed majors and some colonels that just – and sergeant majors and stuff that really just, you know, blazoned their leadership into me. And, you know, one of the things that I always tell myself, and I know everybody's probably heard it at some point in the military, you know, when in charge, be in charge. And one of the things I've discovered kind of as I rank up and as I get into these different leadership positions is develop that leadership capability throughout their career, that when they get to these positions, they can't make decisions, or they want so much data or so much information and so much fact presented to them before they make a decision that they almost cripple themselves in the leadership position. And it is such a toxic environment that then permeates from that, because you're not getting guidance. They're not setting precedent. They're not setting baselines for everybody to understand. They're not setting their basic SOPs. And then when you look at a leader that can't make a decision, or a leader that can't, you know, be the bad guy, for instance, they can't make the decision that's not going to go over really well, because it just isn't going to be received well. Because let's be honest, nobody likes to be messed with in terms of, if you come into an organization that's had this atmosphere of do whatever you want, and you come in and you're the person who set the rules down, nobody's going to like that. But that's just what a good leader does. A good leader sets that tone, and a good environment is born, you know, not necessarily strict, archaic, you know, draconian style leadership, but with boundaries, because that's what we do in the military. We set boundaries, we set the tone, and we follow things, and there's reasons we do a lot of the things that we do, and it's to set those precedents. The attention to detail that we're taught in the schoolhouse. When you're in OCS and you're having to put your pens a quarter of an inch apart and line up your uniforms and line up your clothes, you went through this in walks, you know, and they were measuring everything. This is not just to mess with you, it's to get your mind wrapped around the fact of, like, small things matter, little things matter. And then when you rank up and you get to these positions, if you've never exercised those leadership capability, and I think that's one thing the military doesn't do well, is prepare leaders to be leaders. Most of the school is based on, most of the education we get in our PME is very much designed to do how to do your jobs, how to be a technical expert, or how to do a general role within your MOS. But to just purely be a leader, we do very poor job at mentoring leaders, and from many different aspects. And one of those is, when you come into leadership role, the first thing you do is, like, when I took command, the first thing you're supposed to do is initially counsel your subordinates, the people that reply direct to you. And that is important because you're setting the precedent of your expectations. You're setting the tone for your command. You're setting the tone for what you're going to expect of your leaders. And in my instance, my leaders were, majors. And so you're setting the tone at a field grade level going, this is what I expect out of my field grade officers. And in tune, I expect you to turn and tell your company grade officers and your lower level officers that expectation and make that your own, make that intent your own. And if you're not doing that as a leader, then you're leaving your leadership, both officers and NCOs, to figure it out, kind of read your mind and look at from your behavior what the expectations are. And you cripple the environment, because then people think that they can just take things upon themselves. And so you have to gap fill. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves of not setting that precedent, and then doing something along the lines of, one of the things I dealt with when I was a company commander, one of the things I used to just hammer into my NCOs and officers was, you always get that situation where you have what people like, oh, this is a poor performing soldier, whatever. They're the piece of shit. Nobody likes them. Everyone wants to get kicked out of the Army. And they'll bring you an Article 15 packet. And one of the ones I will always remember is they brought me this one. It was a soldier that wouldn't show up to work on time, things like that. Now, mind you, we're sitting in the middle of Iraq. So when I say wouldn't show up on time to different formations, things like that, the kid sleeps 50 feet away, 100 feet away in a chew. It's not like he's in a barracks and he's like 10 miles from our battalion headquarters. And so you look at the situation, you go, okay, everything you're saying about the soldier sounds like, yep, he sounds like a real piece of shit. But then you look at his packing and you go, okay, I see no initial counseling. I see no quarterly counselings. I just see 2 counselings that you just gave him that said, you're a piece of shit. We're going to recommend you for Article 15. And you look at it, well, what did we do to develop this soldier? What did we have now put this moniker on this soldier saying he's worthless, he's a piece of shit. But what did you do to fix the problem? What leadership thing did you apply? What leadership skills, what leadership actions did you apply to change the course of direction of this soldier? What did you do as a leader to help them succeed? Because not everybody comes out the gate is just worthless. You have to, they've gotten to that point with your help, because if you haven't steered them in the right direction or attempted to, you've done nothing to help that soldier. And I think that's one of the things I've noticed as a senior leader, is that when, especially when it comes to officers, we are so hesitant to course correct an officer, because this whole mentality of like, well, if I give a captain a negative counseling or a less than stellar OER, their career's over. And that's just not true. But that's the moniker that we've placed on things. And so we are so trigger shy. So many people are trigger shy to do that, not understanding that if you don't do that, then they become the major, they become the lieutenant colonel, they become the colonel that nobody can stand. Everybody can agree they're worthless, but there's nothing you could do about it because nobody's mentored them. Nobody's told them. There's plenty of cases, I think, where I've met senior officers that have never actually been told they're failing at something. I have had my own leaders that they remember the MSAF 360 where you had to go 1 up, 2 down, you had to do all these different things. And I was always honest on those because I felt like we owed that to both our leaders and our subordinates, to be honest. And I remember getting pulled in once, and I won't use names, but I got pulled in to a lieutenant colonel's office about over an MSAF 360. And this lieutenant colonel was asking me, it was pretty obvious that it was my comments that came back, and they wanted to know more about what I was saying. And they shockingly were, receptive with a little bit of hidden animosity about my
being a little bit defensive, but he was kind of curious as to where it was coming from.
Being very careful to say, like, I'm not saying it was you, but I'm pretty confident it was you. Also, you put your name in there, so I'm very sure it was you because I always put my name in there. And they were just saying, like, what do you think about me being in command? And I was very open. I said, look, nicest person I've probably ever met. You're so kind. You're so nice. Terrible officer, terrible leader, because you can't make hard decisions. You don't hold anybody accountable. You don't set the precedent. You're very nice when people are going through things. You're always there for them. You have an ear, but you don't hold people accountable. And because of that, you're surrounded by junior officers that do whatever they want. And all the soldiers see that, and it permeates down to the lowest level because you got lieutenants, captains, and majors running around doing whatever they want because they're not being held accountable. And now every single enlisted soldier sees that and goes, why am I going to follow the rules if these officers can't even fall in line? And that sets a tone. And now you have completely undermined your own ability to command, and you've completely undermined the leadership ability of any one of those, because you have one officer in that chain who tries to do the right thing. And in the case, it was me trying to institute something within my section. And the pushback I was getting was, why? Why are you doing this? That's just, well, that's, let's be easy. Let's go easy on this person, or let's not do this. And when you try to uphold standards, you get held back, because if nobody else is doing it, it's really hard to justify you doing it, because it's not that it's your peers not holding it accountable. It's the leadership, the command. And if the command doesn't fall in line, then you have no ground to stand on, and you have no backing to really hold people accountable.
Now, is this an issue that you've encountered on the active duty side, or is this kind of more since you've transitioned into the reserves?
Oh, no, this was that scenario I just gave you was completely active duty. I would say it's on both, because I think it's certainly more prevalent on the reserve side, because I think we have a personnel shortage, and I think that more people are hesitant to hold people's feet to the fire. But I think it's a leadership issue that's both on the active and reserve side. I think it's certainly not something where it's like everywhere I go, this is a situation. But I think more often than not, you'll be very hard pressed to find a lieutenant colonel in command that is willing to be completely honest on an officer's evaluation, because they don't want to hurt that officer's career. And too often, and I've seen this on the active duty and the reserve side, when you do the top blocking, the infamous top block, get the top block on the OER, in many cases, they're delved out, they're handed out not in so much as, is this officer really my number one officer within this rank or grade? It's, well, they got a board coming up next year, so
Yeah, it's used to kind of give them a nudge at the board, at their next board, because they've been here for 2 years. They're looking at getting promoted. Let me give them a little nod before, on my way out the door.
Exactly. Or in my case, once it happened to me where I was the junior guy, I wasn't going to get looked at for major for a couple of years. So you get told, well, you have time, so giving you a top block now, even though you're the best officer, and I'm going to rank you as in the top 5, giving you a top block now is only going to hurt you, because what if you're not as good the next rating period? Then you're going to go to center mass, and people are going to think you retrograded, or you went back down. And that just, it completely undermines people, and it really takes the wind out of your sails when you're trying to do the right thing. You're hard charging, you're trying to be out front, you're trying to do the right thing, but then you realize that your ranking and ordering and how you get evaluated isn't based on your performance, isn't based on where you fall into the mix. It's based on who's getting promoted next, who needs it. That came to play, especially in the MI, more so than any other MOS. When I was in the infantry side, I was a little bit more competitive in terms of getting company command was a big deal. In the MI side of the house, the company commands are a lot fewer. And I think what it turned into is, well, we need to rotate people into company command so they're competitive for major. So you'll get command for a year, and then maybe we'll give this other person command, and then the other person, but you're not going to get a formal, you're not being told you're getting command because you're really, really good. It's, hey, you need to go get your S2 time, you need to get your command time. Oh, look at your board packet. You're not really ready for the board. So this other person will take command ahead of you because they need it more for their board. And I think that completely undermines what we're trying to do in terms of creating leaders that are motivated to succeed. We take the wind out of their sails so quickly when you tell them you can work and be the best, most hardest working captain in the Army, but I'm telling you, I'm going to rank you down here because somebody else needs that slot to succeed. They haven't put the time or the effort. They haven't put the time. They haven't done the work, but we want to level the playing field. So by leveling the playing field, we're now taking you a step back to put them a step forward, so you guys can get promoted together. That's almost what you're telling these folks.
Yeah.
And so leadership is my biggest pet peeve with the military.
So what you're saying is you're making your campaign for DAG1. That's your next. That's your when you're looking at 06. You're going to DAG1 is what you're telling me.
I'll be happy just to make 06. I'll be your driver when you're CW5.
Yeah, that ain't happening, man. As a matter of fact, I've always said on my birthday coming up this year, my gift to myself is I'm submitting that packet, man. I am telling HRC, hey, I fully intend to retire from the Army. So I'm not going to see CW5, man. It's not in the cards for me.
You make sure you BCC me on that email.
Okay, I will. Don't you try to reclaim on my retirement packet either. Well, this has been very interesting, man, and I think we could go probably a solid hour just on ways that we think we could improve, leadership and really every 5 or 6 years they try to do something to shake up the promotion, kind of the promotion requirements and the evaluation requirements, especially for the officers, and still haven't been able to get it right, man. So I think that's that could be an entire other discussion on its own. But I wanted to kind of pivot and talk a little bit about kind of the personal side of Major Joe McKinney. So if you don't mind, man, we'll take a brief break and we'll get right back to it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So we'll take a break and we'll hear a little bit more from Ebony Ascent.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Veterans of the Game podcast. We're here to tell you about what's going on at Ebony Ascent. Look, we've got a great financial web series. It is called Money-ish. We got a blog. We got a web series that drops every Friday. We need you to head over to Ebony Ascent right now. Check it out. Check out the articles. We all know that talking about money and dealing with money can be difficult. It can be hard. It can be confusing. So here at Ebony Ascent, we try and break it down for you, make it super easy. And like I said, we got a web series coming at you every Friday to break all of these things down. So look, head on over to ebonyascent.com. Make sure you subscribe to the Money-ish newsletter and tune in every Friday. Now, let's get you back to the pod.
So, welcome back to the podcast. Since we got kind of hot and heavy regarding leadership in the Army, and so now I kind of wanted to pivot and talk a little bit about kind of the things that make Major McKinney tick. So, whenever you're not in the uniform, sir, what are you passionate about?
So I will say after a pretty steady deployment schedule and rotating quite a bit out, I was told by a very close person that I needed some hobbies. So I got into some hobbies coming out of Fort Bragg coming up here, and got into a lot of hands-on like woodworking types things. So exercise is definitely one of my big ones. Woodworking, building things. I like creating things, and I like collecting things like pop culture, DC, Marvel type things. So going to like Comic-Cons and things like that. My daughter's 10 now, so she goes with me. We tend to dress up for these events. So I'm really connecting, trying to find common ground with my kids and doing things with them. And then, just keeping my mind busy and doing some projects and stuff like that. So I like to go out, do some exploring, and also have become quite the whiskey Scotch connoisseur as I've gotten a little bit more refined after being neighbors with a mixologist. So trying to up my drinking game to, not to just see the bottle of Jack Daniels, but a little bit more refined palate. So yeah, I think that, I'm really somebody who, I like to stay focused and building things with my hands. So I have to get into things, and got a lot into racing and running lately. My wife over the past couple of years has gotten into running, so drags me out to her runs a lot and signs me up sometimes without my knowledge. And then I find out I have runs to go do. So I think I have 2 trail runs actually later this month. But yeah, I just try to stay active. I came back up here to Virginia and moved close to family. So another thing I was very kind of passionate about after being in the military for about 11, 12 years at that time, and just being deployed and gone, is reconnecting and making connections outside of the military, not just, I really, I think a lot of veterans and military people tell you start to realize all of your friends are in the military, and people you grew up with, families start to kind of fall off. And so really making those connections and reconnecting, it was something that was big for me. So, yeah, I guess those are kind of my passions, that, things that I'm really passionate about. And then obviously being on the contracting and government side now, just being creating a business, creating a company that, something that I want to do with the proceeds down the road is I'm really passionate about developing a 6th to 12th grade tech program for kids in high school that actually can graduate them from high school certified to get into the workforce, doing the things they want to do, utilizing technology. So I'm really focused on that, and using my daughter as a test case, whether she wants to or not, getting her involved in technology and getting her coding and different things like that, and really kind of applying things that I've learned in the military and leadership and things, and really trying to see how we can give that back to the youth. I think that with the way the world is now, it's a bold endeavor to kind of go about that. But, much like that young second lieutenant who joined the Army back in 06, that whole one person can change the world. And once that was beat out of me, I realized one person can then just cut a little piece of that pie and put some pepperonis on it and maybe change some things. So that's kind of the array of things. And, so that's what Joe McKinney tends to do when he's not playing Army or running around working, 50, 60-hour weeks.
Well, now, I want to say it was about 2 weeks ago, I recall seeing something about an undefeated season. So you failed to mention that Major Joe McKinney is also known as Coach Joe McKinney. What about that? Can you talk a little bit about what you got going on the what do you call it, the soccer pitch?
Yeah, so it's funny talking about, being military and just figuring things out, getting thrown in the fire. So I've never really been a big sports guy. I've never been a huge sports guy. That's something you definitely know. Listen to me talk about sports when we played, playing poker and drinking and stuff. But yeah, a year and a half ago, my daughter decided she wanted to play soccer and wanted me to kind of coach. And so never having coached or really played sports like that since my younger years, I jumped in, pulled my dad out of retirement, and we started coaching for the county. And 3 seasons in now, we just had our first undefeated season. And now, so I've been coaching U10 all girls, and we're graduating to U12 this fall. So I've been coaching now for about 2 years, so about a year and a half, so 3 full seasons. And yeah, we just went undefeated and set the tone for the rest of the team. So now I know who's out front. And now going to the U12 league, I think that we're going to have a target on our back. So we'll see how that goes. But coaching has been awesome. It's definitely been one of those things of giving back and really kind of working with kids. And, working with 10, 11-year-old girls is an interesting environment. I thought my daughter asked me a lot of questions, but you multiply her by 12 and I get a lot of weird questions and girls that don't want to stop talking at practice.
That's pretty awesome. So she got you into it. So she decided that she wanted to play soccer, and she decided that she wanted you to coach her.
So yeah, she's very, it takes her a while to warm up to groups. And I think the whole concept of just jumping into a team with not knowing anybody was a challenge for her. So me coaching kind of gave her that confidence to really just walk out there and kind of join the group. And then, realizing, I think pretty shortly thereafter, that friends of hers from school were on the team and different things. She's kind of created her own little friend group within the soccer community now. So she's and they're pretty close, especially after this last season. I mean, the whole team from this last season has a group chat that they're always in.
Oh my goodness!
I'm pretty sure that with the web chats and video chats, that Kyrie's going to eventually get yanked into those calls. They're always on their little video chats and everything, talking and planning and scheming and telling me all these sleepovers and things that they're planning without telling me that they're going to all be in my basement. So. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been definitely a learning experience. It's shown me how little I knew about soccer for sure. So,
but you know what? Because we have kids that are roughly the same age. My son Kyrie, we were neighbors, so they were best friends for a while, and they're at that age now where like they're kind of coming into their own as a person. Before they were your kid. And now they're kind of coming into their own, and they're becoming, little Stella and little Kyrie, and they're independent now, and they want to do things on their own. So I think it's pretty cool, and I'm actually pretty impressed that she wanted you there, as she tries to feel her way out and branch out and make her own friends and make her own decisions. She's still kind of a little bit tethered to dad, man. How do you feel about that?
Good. I had this concept earlier when she was younger. My wife laughed at me, but I said, I'm going to be hands-on involved in everything she does from a young age at school and everything, with the idea that by the time she reaches high school, she's just so accustomed and used to me being there that when I'm chaperoning those dances and making sure they still got 3 feet in between them at these dances, that it won't be weird to have dad around. We'll see how long it lasts, but I'm glad it's gone around this long, and that she still gets dressed up with me to go to Comic-Cons and things. So I will definitely ride this as long as it goes until she doesn't want me around anymore and decides that she's too cool for dad to be there anymore. I'm not the cool dad anymore. But it's interesting because lately too, she's been wanting to work out with me too. So going to the gym with me and different things that she likes to go in, and she has her little workouts on her phone. And so I think as we find more common ground and different things, she certainly latches on to different interests and things that I'm doing. So it's been kind of unique to have that relationship and kind of like have those points where she really wants to be a part of things I'm doing. So, we do swim laps together. We go to the gym. She went with me this year to do the Murph Challenge, which was actually kind of a unique experience, getting to talk to her about what the Murph Challenge means to us, and Memorial Day, and talking about some of my friends that I've lost. But yeah, it's definitely a good connection, and I hope she doesn't outgrow it anytime soon. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I saw that you guys have done a couple of your competitive runs together too, right?
Yeah, so especially during COVID, when they had a whole lot of those virtual runs and the different like Batman and Wonder Woman themed and Scooby-Doo themed ones. We did quite a bit of those and a lot of like 1 to 3 mile type challenges. So at first it kind of started off with she just really wanted the t-shirt really bad and the medals, and then she really enjoyed that and really like just I think having those bragging rights of yep, I ran that, I did that. So and then with soccer, I think she's got this mentality of like, I got to get my cardio better because running around on the soccer field really sucks. And so she's definitely focused on things that she enjoys, and you definitely don't want to make it a chore for her, but she's certainly starting to get into working out and things. So yeah, definitely done a lot of those, and the more we do, the more she wants to be involved with them. So like I said, I'll take it until she's outgrown that and doesn't want to be friends anymore.
Are you prepared for when she doesn't want to be friends anymore?
I am not.
It's brutal, man, because the axe comes down quick. It just happens. It just happens one day.
And then we're like, no, just wanted one more day before I was
It's gonna come quick, man. And she's not your only child, right? So you have a son as well.
Yep. Ezra's 5, so he'll actually start kindergarten this fall. So he'll start getting into those types of things as well. And, he loves running around too. I could actually take him out to the soccer field and he'll run around there like a crazy person, but nothing organized yet. Definitely haven't got him anything like that just yet, but he's raring to go. So I definitely think he's going to be one that wants to be involved in any kind of athletic endeavor for sure. So
I do know he was very interested in basketball, particularly dunking. He was all about dunking a basketball when I was last there. What about him, socially, is he kind of coming into his own and getting his own friend group together? Is he at that point yet?
Oh yeah, he is a social butterfly. So he was in preschool this past year and actually had a little girlfriend in class, and they had to be separated quite a bit because they were just sitting in each other's laps making out. So teacher had to break them up quite a bit, but oh yeah, he definitely likes his little friends, and he has his little friend group in class, and he would get dropped off in the morning and walk into class holding his little girlfriend's hand, and they would just they love playing together. And so now the school year's over, they're going to be going to different schools for kindergarten, so I'm sure they'll have some friend dates and stuff. But yeah, he is a social butterfly. He makes friends with everybody. He doesn't like dogs, but so if there's a dog in the mix, he's not coming out to play. He'll just watch from the window. But oh yeah, outside of that, once he connects with kids, he just goes crazy. So we actually got rid of our guest room to give him an extra big playroom and put things up on the wall, and big basketball hoop down there for him to go to town, and big TV so he can watch his, the shows he's into now, Blaze and Paw Patrol and all those. So he loves dogs on TV, just not in real life.
Yeah, well, the ones on TV can't bite him. I get it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he's definitely already been through young love, and we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? So, maybe this will just follow him all the way to high school.
So when you said they are sitting in each other's laps and making out, is this like figuratively making out, or is this like a couple of 4-year-olds?
These were like
exchanging kisses.
Exchanging kisses, being
oh my goodness,
like, hey, can't do this in class, guys. So yeah, he knows what he's about.
Oh my goodness, man! You have to keep.
Say, having seen those kids together, I think the little girl is a little bit more aggressive than he was.
I know you wanted to keep Stella and her little dates 3 feet apart, but you might have to watch out for that little Ezra, man.
I never thought that he'd be the one I have to put a barrier around. Like, come on, man. Trying to set a good example for your sister. What are you doing?
Well, she's supposed to be the example for him, man. So aside from your fitness and your coaching, you got anything else going on you wanna make the people aware of?
Just especially as veterans and people listening, so anybody's that coming to the DC metro area needs a post-military job. That's what we do. So veteran community's tight, and it's one of the things of being in a small business. I like to be available and look for folks that are transitioning. That's one of the things I do enjoy doing is mentoring folks as they're either retiring, getting out, and just kind of walking them through that process of what does it look like coming out and getting into this. Having been through it myself, whether it's folks that want to start a company when they get out, if they just want to go get a job working in contracting, understanding things from resume prep to how much money to ask for within a career field, things like that, just being there and being able to help walk them through it. And when we can bring them into our company, because obviously having a company, it's very helpful to be able to bring them right in, but just, being that arm for folks, especially in the veteran community that maybe are kind of stepping into the unknown for the first time. So that's definitely something I like to plug out whenever I can, that, there's plenty of people that do what I do and are available. Just like to add to that number and give people as many resources as possible. So since you're going to be a syndicated podcast here, and quite, like you and Joe Rogan, fighting for that top number one slot, I want to get my name out there, make sure people know if they need help, hit up Maine Terry, and then have him call his friend.
Well, here's your opportunity, man. So do you have any socials? You got an email? You got a website you want to plug? Here is your chance.
I feel like I should just hold up my business card and just be like, here it is. Well, no, yeah, people can hit me up on social media. Joe McKinney. I'm on Facebook, and that's a pretty quick way to get me. Outside of that, obviously my work, my work email or our website, Allen Integrated Solutions. Hit it up. We'll find you something, or through that website you can find me. Get me on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. There I use my full biblical name, Joseph McKinney, the one my mom yells when she's mad at me. And then
she still does that too, right? To this day,
uses the full name, middle and all. So I'm not even gonna put that one out there. I don't need that evil on me. So
well, yeah. Whenever we finish recording, just shoot me your business card. I'll make sure to put all the important details in the description on the podcast. And whoever's listening, you looking for connect out in the DC area, Joseph McKinney, he's out there. He's out there and he's willing to help.
He's out here. I'm waiting.
Well, unless you got anything else you feel like getting off your chest, I think we had a pretty solid podcast today. What do you say, sir?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on here. Looking forward to hearing it published and being famous like you. Just being in your tail wash would be enough for me.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, it's going to be Joe Rogan and Joe McKinney. They're going to be synonymous for podcasts on the internet, man. Thank you for joining. Once again, this is our second episode of Veterans of the Game podcast. I appreciate you all listening. And until next time, keep out.